Hello, parents of newly identified CISD GT learners. My name is Dr. Dina Dinas. I am the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, and I oversee advanced academics for the school district. It's my pleasure to have the opportunity to talk to you a little bit today about what you can expect from the services we provide at the elementary level for our GT learners. As I said, this is our curriculum night, and like with many things in 2021, it's going to be virtual. There will be an opportunity for you to ask questions on a link that we're going to provide for you a couple of slides into the presentation. First, you need to meet the GT team. They are some of the most dedicated and excited educators in the district. You will enjoy meeting your specialist if you've not already done so. The questions, should you have any, can be submitted to the tiny URL that is in that green box, https://tinyurl.com/CISD GT curriculum spring 2021. And as I said before, I am Dina Dinas, the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. CISD's GT services are grounded in the revised Texas State Plan for the Education of Gifted and Talented Students. We implemented that plan in 2019 and have iterated on it. We were also fortunate enough to have two of our community members who served on the revision of that plan, and there are many things that are now required that CISD has been doing for quite some time. We also have posted on our district website the Gifted Services Administrative Guidelines, and those are a helpful tool if you have any questions about what our service model looks like, what training is required, etc. It's just a nice anchor for you to go back and look should you feel so inclined. And first, we want to say thank you. As our greatest supporters, we need your help in giving us a little bit of grace as we continue to navigate this school year. It's been filled with many challenges and also some really amazing opportunities. And we're excited that we have been able to provide services in this new way and keep as many of our learners safe as we can. So while we continue to have learners who are learning in a remote environment or face to face, our service needs continue to be based on the specific needs of each learner. We provide a continuum of services, and that changes based on the needs of the learner in the content area, in the grade level they're in the structure of their day to day learning. Classroom instruction in this model is a built-in co-planned extension that's available to any learner who pre-assesses out of the content or who shows mastery along the way. This is different work, but it's respectful work. It's not more work. It's usually self-guided. Classroom differentiation is where there's a replacement activity that might require small group instruction or the educator in the classroom or the GT specialist co-facilitating. The differentiation should apply the concepts that the learner is working through. And it is a little bit deeper than the standard curriculum covered in the classroom. It also may be more complex, meaning that it makes connections across content areas or connections inside the primary content area. Push in and pull out is where our GT specialists have the most face time with our learners. They may be pulled out for small group instruction, and that often goes beyond the grade level curriculum and the standards provided in the general education classroom. The GT specialists facilitate this learning experience in the classroom sometimes, but more often they are pulling learners out for small group instruction. This can also include some social emotional supports. As parents of GT learners, I am sure you're well aware that sometimes they struggle in social situations or need a little bit of guidance in the best way to work through some of the complexities of their nature. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through. As I'm sure you are all now very familiar with Schoology, I will just share that our gifted and talented specialists have their own curriculum and courses that they share with learners. So you can see that your learner will have been added to the appropriate course to support his or her differentiated learning needs. And those academic extensions that I talked about 2 slides ago will be housed inside Schoology. Again, some extensions are self-paced and might be a part of that classroom instruction piece. Classroom differentiation may be small group work that would require learners to partner together or work closely with the educator or the GT specialist to complete that task. And then there are those more in-depth push in or pull out activities that will require learners to engage in a different level and usually in a very customized level. Extensions will appear inside the Schoology folder in the coursework that is aligned to however the classroom educator and the GTI specialists have determined is the best way to support the teaching of that standard or the extension of that standard. Those extensions are published to learners who have demonstrated mastery and require those replacement activities. Those extensions can also be released to learners who we would consider question 4 learners or learners who are not identified GT but have demonstrated mastery. So academic extensions are part of the daily work of our GT specialists, but the other side of their job is to provide some enrichment. Enrichments are really based on the interests of our learners. And so they are different across different campuses as we find out what learners are most interested in. Some of the examples, but this isn't a comprehensive list, are HOE, which is hands-on equations, Math Olympiad, obviously a mathematics competition. We have some Rubik's Cubes that our GT specialist wrote a grant for several years ago that are about working together and being creative and problem solving in order to create big mosaics out of those rubrics. Genius Hour and TPSP, which is the Texas Performance Standards Project, are more supports for learners who have a particular interest and want to take a deep dive into a particular topic or content. Creative writing is something that the Coppell Gifted Association supports, and our learners often enter their yearly competition. Robotics speaks for itself. And then the GEMIN is the Model UN for young learners. And so these are some of the enrichment opportunities that our GTI specialists across the district facilitate for their campuses. Again, not all of these are on every campus as it's customized to the particular interests of learners on each campus. For the 2021 school year, again, most of our activities are being facilitated via Schoology. It provides us the opportunity to address the equity issues that might occur between our face-to-face and remote learners. And we are not offering as many this year simply because of the amount of time that it has taken our specialists to move that content and curriculum to an online platform. Many of your learners may have already been part of some of these activities prior to being identified gifted. They are open to learners who are GT, but also those that just show interest. Our GTI specialists have their own courses, and that's where you can find more information for learners or parents and guardians, newsletters that they might send out, and the Zoom schedules. They do meet at least once a week with each group of learners. Some enrichments can be found there. A lot of the social emotional learning supports or creative thinking activities that the GT specialists are doing on a weekly basis are also housed there. There are separate courses for Math Olympiad, Junior Model UN, etc., again, because those are open to more than just our GT identified learners. As I said before, the GTi specialists are hosting at least one Zoom a week for learners at each grade level. And the primary purpose of those is to give GT identified learners time to meet together as a group. It's really important that that homogeneous grouping or that like ability grouping happen. So that is our method for doing that this year. Our GT specialists during that time will primarily focus on social emotional needs and that critical or creative thinking. There'll be some activities weekly that learners can choose to participate in. The Zooms are not mandatory as CISD has chosen asynchronous learning. However, they are strongly encouraged. We are working closely with our classroom educators to schedule these at convenient times. Sometimes it's a lunch bunch or something like that, but they are not meant to be a source of stress for your learner. As the district has emphasized the importance of social emotional learning, the GTi specialists at the elementary level have looked at how we can provide some very specific social emotional supports for our GT learners. So you can see here that they've created a scope and sequence by grade level for what they will address in each group. There's kind of a big guiding question or a focus area, and then some subtopic areas that you can see in those bubbles on the bottom to support that investigation of that big question. This is our opportunity to really help GT learners see their unique abilities and that they are different than other learners. Not better, not worse, just different. And this is our opportunity to really help support those social emotional learning needs. But moms and dads and guardians, we know that it's not easy to be the parent of a GT learner. And so we have provided for you some links to places where you can get some support too. I know that many of our GT learners have some intensities, things that they just cannot let go of, and that's very common. It's not anything to be concerned about, but it is something that sometimes as parents and educators, we need to have a little more information on so that we can best support that learner. I know that very often we experience learners who have um, real perfectionist tendencies and feel like they're never good enough. And so, how do we support those? I'm sure that some of you are sitting there nodding your heads, thinking, oh my goodness, it's not just me. Here are some places where you can go for some support. There are tons of podcasts down at that Mind Matters podcast link. Please check that out if you haven't already. We've actually utilized those for some professional learning for CISD faculty and staff members. You can always go to the Coppell Gifted Association as well, and they have a lending library for books specific to growing up gifted. We know that your learner has just been newly identified, but we do want to make sure that you know what comes next. The state plan now calls for reassessment for GT learners only once in elementary school. So if you've had a learner that's been identified as a kindergartner, a first grader, or a second grader, then we will not reassess them again until fifth grade. If a learner's been identified in third or fourth, again, they will not be reassessed until fifth grade. We, on testing days at third grade, if we are allowed to go back to that schedule next year, already identified learners who are in third grade will have some alternate activities and an alternate place to report on those days while assessment is happening for their grade level peers. Everyone will be assessed at fifth grade, and we find that whether a learner is identified GT or not, this allows us to help them look at their strengths and make course selections for middle school. For learners who are in fifth grade and identified GT, their area of identification will guide what GT courses they are eligible to participate in when they go to middle school. So for example, if a learner is identified general intellectual ability or GIA, which often happens When we early identify a learner in kinder or first grade, it may be by the time they get to fifth grade that that learner has really developed an area of strength. And it may be that it's math and science. And so that GIA eligibility might change to math and science, and in which case that learner would be eligible to take the mathematics GT courses at middle school and the science GT courses, but not all. If that original GIA, or general intellectual ability identification, stays, then that learner can take GT courses in all 4 core. Or if the learner has been identified as language arts social studies, then language arts social studies would be the courses open to them. It is also possible that a learner could have a very specialized area of interest, say just mathematics. It's the area of giftedness. And so the learner would be eligible to take just that one mathematics course at the middle school level and moving through the rest of their high school or secondary career. Being the parent of a GT learner is a challenge, and navigating some of the changes that are coming can be challenging. So please feel free to reach out to any of the educators on the next couple of slides, myself included. Here's the rest of our GT team, a fabulous group of individuals. As I said before, if you have any questions or comments, please go to this tiny URL and put your questions and comments. We're going to put together a frequently asked questions and send those responses out the week of April 12th. Thank you again, families, for your attention. We are honored to serve your learners, and we look forward to a successful career doing so. Thank you.